Yes.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, Heru.
On live now.
All right. Baba Mosi? Your camera's not, okay.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings, Baba.
It's so good to see beautiful and handsome faces. Thank you for being here. Welcome to this Freedom Friday Forum of April 22nd, 2022, brought to you by the Woodson Banneker Jackson Bay Division, UNIA CLRC 2020. We've had some issue with time, and also we have to recognize that some of our presenters may have some constraints as well with their time. So we're going to try to open up with a very short, using our short version of where we open up normally. And that is, we're going to go straight to the official pledge to the flag. Then I will pass this over to Baba Senghor, who will then introduce the presenters and continue with this show. All right. The official UNI pledge to the flag. I commit my body, mind, and spirit to the protection, defense, and security of the red, black, and green. I dedicate my life to the redemption of Mother Africa and the liberation of her scattered Black children. I accept for myself and my descendants the teachings of universal African nationalism, and I promise that our children will be instilled with the purpose and knowledge of themselves as African people, in order that the cause of our struggle will neither falter nor fail until all Black people are free and united through one God, one aim, one destiny. Now I will turn this over to Baba Senghor. As you wish, Baba Senghor.
Baba Mosi,
welcome.
Thank you so much, Baba Mosi, for allowing us to not only do this third presentation for Freedom Friday, but for all April the 1st and the last two that we did. So we are changing up a little bit, you all, but Baba Mosi is the president of Division 330, and we've been doing Freedom Fridays now for a long time. In fact, we've been doing Freedom Fridays on Zoom and Facebook for a little while now. But this month being focused on music, message, and movement have been spectacular. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the last two, but other than where you can go see them, you can go to the New Black Learning channel on YouTube. If you're not friends with some of us on Facebook and pick it up on Facebook, you can go to the New Black Learning channel and see the great presentations. So at the end of tonight, we'll talk a little bit more in detail about them and the purpose of all three of these. But without any further ado, I'm just elated that we have four great, spectacular guests who are not only artistic, and like I said, I like to say uphold Blacktricity, but they are long distance runners in dealing with the arts, culture, and definitely the music, message, and movement. So when I bring on my first guest, who is not only one of the spectacular promoters of reggae music, not only in the DMV, but are actually around the world. Sister Dera is a long distance movement runner, as well as a very musicologist, as I would like to call her. But more importantly, she's been very consistent with bringing us positive messages, not only in the reggae genre, but other music genres, but specifically in the reggae genre. So I could give you a long resume. I'm not going to do that. The purpose of this, Dera, is for us to just have plain, straightforward conversations about what we want to express, about our life experiences of working with the movement. And you had the pleasure of working with the likes of Bob Marley, Steel Pulse. I could go down the list, Black Sheep, just a whole lot of people. But we want you in your own words, and I'm going to be interviewing you. So if you fall short of the time, I'll give you a question or so. And then after that, we'll question But any way you like to express it, dear, please let us know a little about your long legacy of works in the area of music, message, and movement. You got to unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. I thought I'd never do that, but I just did. Okay, so thank you. Thank you. It has been a long road, officially. And, you know, because I started I never thought I would be involved in the music business, but back in the 70s, it happened and unfolded. And it was from being in the movement and being in the Black, being in Howard, being from Roxbury onto Howard, getting in the middle of the most active political years at Howard, and then graduating, getting out in the community and wanting to make a contribution to the community. And I first heard about Rasta from Kwame Ture, 1974, August. He was the first person to really, I maybe heard the sound somewhere, but I didn't really know is what. And he visited me in August 1974. He just returned from Waurika Hills in Jamaica for the groundbreaking of a cultural center in the Rasta community. And he said, Dera, there's brothers and sisters in Jamaica who are Pan-Africanist, they're socialists, they smoke ganja, and they say a Black man is God. Okay, that was it. That was it. That was how it began. And even though Kwame was the first one to enlighten me, in the next 3 years, I just, you know, we didn't even have the internet then, okay? But I read, I didn't know anybody in Jamaica. I didn't know anything about Jamaica, but just that sentence gave me, you know, the vision to want to like, okay, those are my people. I need to find out what this is and deal with it. So, you know, I had to read books. I had to, you know, talk to folks. I had to get involved with the Jamaican community. And this was back in 74. And by 77, I went to Jamaica. I had to go to Jamaica because that's where everything came from. I had studied enough to know that the center was Kingston, not Mobay and any of the tourist areas. And so I needed to go to Kingston and I needed to find out, you know, the connection and make myself part of that whole journey. And so that's what happened. Long story short, I was blessed to, when I went to Kingston, I met certain key people. One person was Darren Green. Some of you might know Darren Green because he ended up being one of the owners of the Zanzibar. But he was the person who was called upon to meet me and my friends at the airport when I first came, and I knew nothing about Jamaica. I mean, I knew a few things, but I didn't know the depths of it. So Darren was at the time working with Third World. So I met members of Third World. This was 1979, and they were just kind of emerging at the time. And so I met them, and through other connections I have, I was able to go to Negril. Negril Beach Village was the first all-inclusive club in Jamaica. And it just so happened that when I traveled to Negril, that there was this Rasta. And Negril was a all-inclusive, like a club meridian, 24 hours of entertainment and, you know, wet t-shirt contest and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I came there as a guest, and then I saw a Rasta man there knitting tams, you know, and so of all the people there, I knew I had to talk to this brother. I had to speak to him, but I didn't even know how. I didn't know how to approach him. I couldn't even say Rasta very well. And it turned out that this brother was Mutabaruka. And the reason he was there in the Negril Beach Village with his family is that Frankie Rance, who was the owner, believed that people could come to Jamaica, come to these all-inclusives and never know the community. So he would have Muta and his wife come every weekend, and Muta knit tams, his whole community that lived in St. James in Montego Bay. They lived in a commune in the hills, and they made crafts to make money. So I met Muta, and, you know, I was a little nervous because I didn't know how to speak to him, and I couldn't understand patois either at the time. But every other word was imperialism, colonialism, you know, Pan-African, you know, I got those words. Okay, so we were communicating, and it was almost like, you know, we were beaming our minds to each other, you know, because he wanted to know about the Black Panthers and the movement in the States, and he wanted to tell me who are the conscious, you know, political artists in Jamaica, and he, you know, he wanted to know who was in America. I could only offer Gil Scott. That was the common denominator. I could only offer Gil Scott. You know, at that time, Gil Scott was perhaps the most prominent of political artists in this in this country. So we just, that was the beginning. That's where we made friends. I ended up going to the hills, with his family, Yvonne, and his children, becoming part of that community. And my trot in Jamaica was always like through the hills, through the Rasta movement. And so I was able to learn over the next 3 years through Muta's connection and his guidance and his mentorship. I was able to meet all of the key people in the movement, in the Rasta movement and beyond. He basically, spent hours teaching me, as well as his wife, Yvonne. And I have to always give thanks and praise to them, because I don't think I would know half of what I know or have met the people I met in the time that I did. The time I started to go to Jamaica, there weren't that many Black Americans going to Jamaica. It was, and not a lot of women. It was tough for women coming into the Rasta movement, as I did. But again, with Muta's guidance and constant teaching. Muta, at the time, no internet. So Muta used to write me letters. I have letters you don't believe that chronicle the whole time I knew him and the whole time he was teaching. And he also used to take a tape recorder and go to the river and record the history, like almost maybe what you hear on his radio program now is what he gave to me. He was like teaching me, and Yvonne would take her time to teach me the feminine side, the woman side of the culture. And so that's how I actually met everybody I know. I actually, the book, Reggae Bloodlines, I don't know if you're familiar with that book. It came out, I don't know the year it was published, but it was in that period, in the early 80s, late 70s. Basically, the story of my journey in Jamaica and with reggae was, it was almost like I went into that book. Everybody in that book, Ross Michael, Chetta Smith, everybody in there, I journeyed with. I got to know, I became close to, and through all of that, I was able to begin my reggae journey. Okay, I don't know if you have a question after that, but that was how it all began, and that's my foundation. And
so Dera, I learned as long as I've known you and been involved, I learned a lot in what you just shared, and I really appreciate that, because that's exactly what we want to do, is to provide information, positive things that went on, so others can emulate properly. Now, Dera, I Productions, which I had the honor and pleasure of working with you with here in the DC area, some great things. Talk a little bit about some of the local stuff that you've done in this area. And I know you can't get it all in a short period of time, but whatever you would like to share. And I certainly remember I Productions, because that's, to me, that was like where I was able to cut my teeth with real roots reggae in the DC area up front. Talk to us a little bit about that.
I just want to say everything that I was always into political, cultural music. I wasn't into anything else. Reggae appealed to me because it was just such a treasure chest of conscious music about Africa, about us. It was a Black perspective. It was militant. They even had a concept called sweet and militant, which, that, yeah, there. So I really studied that whole genre. I mean, I didn't just study, I walked in it. And I couldn't sing very well. So I learned to be a promoter, to be an impresario for the music. And my main focus was to bring music, back then, everybody didn't know about Jamaica, didn't know about reggae, the Black community in America. And I wanted to bring it to my tribe, which is African-American tribe, and basically here in Washington, DC. Again, my commitment was to raise the consciousness of the people through the music. And so those are the artists I have always sought out and wanted to know about and work with and even introduce to this community. I also wanted sometimes to be the first to bring somebody so for instance, Tete Brûlée. I was the first to present them. I was the first to present Lucky Dube, Nasio Fontaine. I don't remember, but as a promoter, you kind of want to have that's your badge, when you can introduce African music to people that it belongs to who don't know it. Because back in the day, all of the African shows used to be attended by white people. We really had to work in DC to get Black people to come to African music shows. And we won't go through all that. So I Productions came in the 80s, early 80s, maybe about 81, 82, because after Bob Marley passed, if you were here in DC, it was really tragic for us because Bob Marley's last show, I was in New York at the Madison Garden show. I had left, I was there for the 2 days with them. I had left to come back to DC because the touring route was from here to Pittsburgh and then DC. And so I had to come to get prepared, you know, and I left New York and got the call the next morning about Bob having the seizure in the park. And I knew, you know, they went on to Pittsburgh, as you know, the history. And so DC was the first show on the tour that never happened, that never happened. So when we heard that Bob died the next year, it was really gripping because, you know, we had missed seeing him and, you know, and now he had passed. So I won't go through all that, but because he passed, I started to feel, you know, Bob had been such a hero to my whole political development that I wanted to honor him. We have to honor our own, you know, who we decide who our heroes are. And back at that time, not that many of us knew Bob Marley. Some of us did. A lot of Black people in America didn't find out about Bob Marley till after he died because he wasn't played on our radio stations. He wasn't promoted to our communities. He was promoted to white and rock communities. That's how the music came through Chris Blackwell. And so, you know, that was the way it came through. So I was lucky to know Kwame Ture, that he pulled me in. And back in those early days, the All African People's Revolutionary Party, they always played reggae at their parties. And Kwame made sure, even when he wasn't here, that one of his folks would bring me to their party. So I started reading the album covers like I was crazy, you know, because I couldn't believe that, you know, these songs that Bob Marley had penned were even existing. It was just like a beautiful flower, you know, learning all this stuff and connecting the dots. So I Productions came into existence because we started having a tribute to Bob Marley at the Kilimanjaro. You were there at the first one. I have the photographs. Black Sheep, Olatunji was there,
Yes.
Damu Smith. I wanted to honor Bob's spirit. We started out with bingy drums, okay? Because that's the foundation. We had, do you remember Sons of His Majesty? I was their manager, you know, Sata Blue, Tenor. Okay, so if you remember, it was February 6, 1982. I think it was 82 when we had our first, you know, physical tribute at the Kilimanjaro. And if you remember, it snowed that day. And the history in DC is when it snows, people stop. They don't come out, they don't go anywhere. The place was packed. It was packed. We had balloons, we had birthday cake, and it was a celebration of Bob Marley's life, his music, but also Pan-Africanism and African unity. So that's why we had Olatunji. He represented the continent. Damu represented the African-American group, and Sata Blue represented the Jamaican connection. So we had poetry, music, dance, and it was a party. And that's how it started. And so different community people like yourself, many others, we had a real foundation because every year we had this event, you know, for quite a few years. And it was this beautiful coming together in the winter because, you know, we see each other all summer. You know, we're partying, we're at Carnival and this and that. But in the winter, we miss each other. And so this was a tradition. And even the big mural of Bob Marley that was in the let me just tell you this. The Kilimanjaro did not want to have this event. Okay, they didn't like Rasta. They didn't care about reggae at this time, and they were not feeling it. But, you know, I pushed through with CD and Ansro who worked there. So we did it. And it became like the foundation of the things that reggae became what they did and what they were all about. So that was the beginning. And we went on for many years, and we really were a community of people that supported each other and just loved this energy. And so that went on for about 10 years. And then, you know, it kind of faded because money and time and things. But we did continue to have it in different ways, sometimes smaller. But I think the very biggest one was at Nation with Nasio Fontaine. And the Smithsonian actually sponsored that one. So that was a big one because nobody had ever seen Nasio Fontaine before. I was blessed to know about Nasio because of my Rasta connections in Dominica. And so I knew about him. I knew the resemblance. I knew the spirit was there. And he blew people away. He blew people away at that show. So that was I&I Productions. Okay.
So Dera, you gave us a lot. And what I want to do in these next few minutes or so is to allow Baba Mosi in particular, if he has any specific questions. But what you just shared is only a little bit of history, her story, our story, and your legacy. However, you did exactly what we want. And that is you connected the dots of music, message, and movement. And I love how you brought it on with my good brother who was in the whirlwind with Garvey, Kwame Ture. And then you segued to another legend who's still with us, Mutabaruka. I mean, so, you know, you mentioned just those three, Kwame Ture, Mutabaruka, and Bob Marley. I mean, goodness. I mean, I've never heard anything by Bob Marley or Mutabaruka that wasn't relevant to the movement and raising our people. Never. I never heard anything come out of Kwame Ture's mouth that wasn't relevant to movement and upliftment. And that's exactly what we wanted to capture here. And you did a marvelous job. And I know you got a lot in. Baba Mosi, you have any questions for our dear sister, Dera Tompkins? You got to unmute, Baba.
Oh, is
you all right, Baba Mosi?
I can't hear him.
Yes. Okay. Now, okay, Sister Dera, let's, you know, you have quite an impressive resume of links and sharing with some of the most iconic reggae saints, so to speak. And this was positive music that you picked up because you had a positive state of mind. And so you were able to link with that music because it was positive and because it was saying things that you felt was good for our folks. That was then. Would you say that that was mainly the music where young people that was you know, connected with, or I mean in Jamaica, not so much here in the U.S., but it gravitated later on. But what would you say was the music that was moving young people in Jamaica at the time?
Well, at that time, back in the 70s, I mean, reggae had a fight because it was Rasta. A lot of the conscious reggae was Rasta. I mean, reggae is reggae music and not all of it is Rasta or conscious. But then there was a powerful body of work by many artists that you probably have known and heard about. And I won't go through the list because there was a legion of artists, male and female, but mostly male groups and male singers. But there were sisters, the sisters were also out there. And so in Jamaica at the time, this is when Rasta was growing popular in the youth community, and not only in the Rasta community, but in the middle class community. As you know, everybody, like third world was like uptown, what they call uptown dreads. This was unknown. Originally, Rastas were from, you know, they were persecuted. They were cast out. They lived in the hills. They were the darkest of the Africans in Jamaica. The brown upper class rejected the whole culture and didn't want anything to do with it. And Rastas were put in jail. They were trimmed. They were beaten. They were, you know, just the bottom of society. But at this time is when the whole movement was coming forward and people were gravitating. If you look at Jamaica now, everybody wears red, gold, and green. Everybody has dreadlock. This was, you know, you would be, your family would disown you if you wore dreadlocks back in those days. So the youth were rebelling and growing just as we were in the Black Power movement up here in the States. The Black Power movement powered a lot of thought. I mean, it was a give and take. I don't want to say anybody was in front because there were many progressive revolutionary groups and activities in Jamaica, Trinidad, and all over the diaspora. But the Black Power movement maybe was more visible because of media in the States. So that influenced things. So there was a strong body of young people. There was a powerful, vibrant Rasta community when you went to Jamaica. And when you went to England, I mean, if you travel the world, and if many of you travel, Rasta is like a connecting force throughout Africa, throughout the Caribbean, and throughout the diaspora. We don't write about it, we don't talk about it because, you know, nobody is chronicling that. But it's the beautiful thing, this whole Garveyism has been spread through the music. You know, just like Garvey was able to get around the world, he didn't even have the internet and all the things we have. And it's like the Rastas took that torch and carried it forward. And we have to like respect that. And we have to give thanks. So back then, the youth were into it. They were growing, they were building, there were lots of, you know, the more roots you could be, the dreader and the more conscious you could be, the better, the more pro-Africa, and all of that was up. Now, things have changed a lot. The music is not the same. The women, you know, women in Jamaica, when I came, were cultural and queens, and they dressed royal and they wore their crowns. And, you know, we didn't, you know, all this rudeness and kind of craziness you see was not there. It was not there when I first went to Jamaica. It all switched over about 15 years after I started to come to Jamaica, and it was kind of frightening. And now it's just gotten, you know, really out of hand. So the youth are in a different place, not only here, but you know, and not, I mean, not only in Jamaica, but here, you know, things have taken a very kind of vulgar turn. You know, it's got a little twisted. And there is a call to discuss and to bring things back to the center. As you know, for the first time in history, the Reggae Grammy, and not that the Reggae Grammy is anything to base, you know, about reggae, but a white group won the Grammy. Now, what can you do? What can you say? You know, you could predict that this was going to happen because this happens all the time. But, you know, now, so that's to say that some of the youth have let go of the really strong foundations that made reggae what it is. It's not just a happy dance. Reggae was powerful because of what it spoke to on behalf of the oppressed, of Black folks, of people of color everywhere. When I hear them say, Bob Marley said that this music will spread and find its right people, those people are us. Okay, those, it's not the whole world. I mean, we want to change the whole world, but Bob and his song and his was aiming at Black folks in the diaspora. And the whole idea was to unify. The strongest call made by Rasta and, you know, Africa Unite. You know, who else is singing songs about that? You know, I mean, there are some people, but, you know, as a body of work. So things have changed, but back then, the Rasta community was powerful, strong, and vibrant, and there was all kinds of events all the time throughout Jamaica. It was like being, I heard Bunny Wailer say, it was like stars. There were stars. I mean, you just walk down the street in Kingston and everyone was there. You would run into Jacob Miller and, you know, I can't think of all, but people were just there. They were there. And to be part of that was just, to me, the most important blessing of my life. So I give thanks that I had beautiful mentors. Give thanks for Kwame, give thanks for meeting Muta and people who guided me, because I wouldn't know what I know without.
So Dera, we could go on and on, but I want to thank you so much. And I just want to say the purpose of this is to strive to return culture back to the music, or to provide some legacy for those artists. Like we had Ross Ledge on with us. Tonight we're going to have King Ziah on. So there is, I'm not trying to get into a long discussion because I want to move on to the next genre of music in Corcoran. But I will say this, that despite what is happening now, we are working to bring back Blacktricity back to blend again. And in other words, we saw the same thing happen with all kinds of genres of music that we started ourselves, get polluted and taken over. But that's due to our own apathy, as you said about Garveyism and Rasta. If it was not for reggae music, the world probably wouldn't even know Marcus Garvey's name. That's a reality. And not only that, we have to thank the Rasta movement for practicing Garveyism, and we thank the Garvey movement for respecting Rasta, because we all are one. And I want to thank you so much, Dera. Stick with us as long as you can. I know you got another engagement, but I want to move to another genre of music now, and another dear person to me, my stepson Corcoran Holt, who I see as he grew up on not only reggae, he'll tell us, but hip hop music and go-go music, and he'll tell us because he's right now on tour with Kenny Garrett in the UK. So we want to bring him on, and then we want to discuss. But Dera, thank you so much again, and believe me, you do us 20 books.
Anyway, thank you so much for.
I know you did. Go ahead.
No, I just want to say thank you for inviting me. Thank you to all your guests, and I respect everybody's contribution that they've made. I know everybody here, and thank you for letting me be a part of this. And I do have to run, so I'm gonna, zoom out.
Dera, bless us, Dera, and we're going to send this YouTube to you so we can send it all over the place, because it was a lot learned, and a lot more will be learned, and you'll get to catch the presenters that come after you. So thank you so much again, Jai Guy.
One love, Irie.
Yeah, Irie. Now, brothers and sisters, you have heard it. Now, that was a little bit of her story from our dear sister, Dera Tompkins. And what a lot of people don't know is that without her great promotion in the DC area, not only the great groups that came from around the world, but a lot of local reggae artists. And Ross Ledge spoke about Dera, last week about how much she helped him. So we know we have local energy that grew out of the DC area, and we're going to talk a little later about a little bit of that. But without any further ado, we're going to switch to another genre of music and to a younger brother who, Corcoran, I don't want to lay it out. I want you to lay it out the way you want, but I definitely want you to let people know a little bit about who you are, where you come from, how you came to be the artist that you are, and what you think about message music and movement. So go ahead, brother Corcoran.
All right. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Clear.
All right. Hey, everybody. As Baba Sinclair said, my name is Corcoran Holt, and I'm from Washington, D.C. And I'm a musician or an artist, bass player. I started on West African percussion when I was a kid, when I was about 4 or 5 years old. And I'm almost 40 now. I'll be 40 this year. And music and creativity has been my life, and it's been my passion from that very young age of 4 years old. I always knew that I wanted to be a musician. I grew up in DC. I started in a West African dance company when I was about 5 years old. My parents put me in a drum class. So I started on djembe, samba, dun, kinkini, and I fell in love with the art form, with just music in general. I was always attracted to how music seemed to move people, touch people's spirits, and it just created a healing force. And I was able to notice that at a very young age. So I knew that was what I wanted to do for my entire life. When I was I always thought I was just going to be a drummer. Sorry if my connection is a little weird. I'm in Spain right now. I just got here today, and I'm using their Wi-Fi.
You're coming across very clear. You're very.
I'm clear. Okay. Good. So about 10 years old, my father signed me up to play upright bass in the DC Youth Orchestra program. I was gonna sign up to play drums, but there were no available spots. And the thing was, with bass and drums, they go hand in hand. So they're both timekeepers in every genre of music that exists, pretty much. The bass is a drum. And my great-grandfather was a bass player. So my father thought it would be a good idea for me to play bass. Honestly, at first, connect with it because I just wanted to be a drummer, and by the time I was about 13, 14 years old, I started at Duke Ellington School of the Arts. My father and one of my babas, Harley Little, who is a great photographer, rest in power and peace in Washington, D.C., they took me to a show at the Lincoln Theater. And Davey Yarborough, who was my mentor at Duke Ellington School of the Arts, was playing in a big band, a jazz big band, with a legendary bass player named Reggie Workman. So I got to hear Reggie Workman play when I was 14 years old, and he played the bass, and he took a solo on the bass, improvising. And that tacked me into really falling in love with the upright bass, because I was able to see that, wow, you can improvise on this instrument that I had just been playing classical music on. From that point, from 10 years old, I was only playing classical, and I started playing jazz at Duke Ellington School of Arts. But when I heard him take that solo and he was playing these rhythms, I thought to myself, oh, wow, this is incredible. So my life's mission was to connect my African roots of playing djembe, samba, dun to the upright bass. So I began doing that. So I went to Duke Ellington. I graduated from there in the year 2000. I furthered my education at Shenandoah Conservatory out in Winchester, Virginia, which was the polar opposite of Washington, D.C., to where I was from. So I went into, I focused, I learned how to really connect with my instrument. I went to a little culture shock, to be honest with you, coming from D.C., coming from Duke Ellington, coming from this creative force going out to the mountains, it gave me time to really focus on myself, to develop my craft. I was going to go straight to New York at 17 years old, but I went there. I spent 4 years there. I got my undergraduate degree from Shenandoah. I came back to DC 2004, May 2004, stayed until June 2005. Spent a year playing on the scene, playing at Twins Jazz, Bohemian Caverns, the whole U Street corridor, Cafe Nema, Utopia, JoJo's, Blues Alley, Kennedy Center. You know, just really soaking up all of the knowledge that I could in that 1 year span after college. And I went to New York, went to Queens College, did my master's degree, and I stayed there in Queens College from 2005 until last December when I returned to DC after having my second child. And so I decided to return home recently to artistry into the city that I came from and try to use this time that I'm in Washington to connect with those that helped bring me up, but also, you know, just give back the information that I've gained over these last 15 plus years of being away. And I'm currently on tour right now with Kenny Garrett, who is an incredible jazz saxophonist. He is probably the most influential saxophone player since John Coltrane. I believe in history, and you can quote me on this, but in history, you know, Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, Jackie McLean, Cannonball Adderley. Kenny Garrett is pretty, and Branford Marsalis, but Kenny Garrett is kind of like that. It's an influential leading voice of jazz saxophone of the modern era. So I've been fortunate enough to be playing with him for the last 11 years. I'm on my first tour, world tour with him since the pandemic. I haven't been across the ocean to Europe or any place like that since 2020. So I'm here right now and I'm logged in and I'm here to talk to, you know, my Baba and talk to everybody. You know, it's 1:30 in the morning right now, but I'm here. So
Corcoran, I appreciate you being with us, bro. And I know you were going to be with us at another time, but you had a gig then. Yeah. And I appreciate you. I know what time it is. I know you did a gig last night over there. I know I know y'all ahead of us, but it's a couple things I want you to just elaborate on before you go. And that is, you know, now you grew up in DC, you have some music out already. Let's talk about this music you have out right now and why you put it out. And let's talk a little bit about your go-go experience in DC. I mean, how that relates to the work that you do, passing back to younger brothers and sisters.
Okay. So when I was in college at Shenandoah, I would come home every weekend and I would, I grew up on go-go music, you know. My band, of course I love Chuck Brown, you know, but that's kind of like the generation right before me, you know, Chuck Brown. Then you could go back to EU and then, you know, Sugar Bear and, you know, all of that stuff. But my band personally is Backyard Band. And I would go to the Black Hole every Friday night. Go-go music is community music. It is music that I listen to it every day still. And my wife being from New York, she's logged on listening. She's grown to appreciate the artistry of go-go music. I was able to take her to City Winery to hear Backyard play. And the thing about go-go that I love so much is that it's about community. It's about uplifting, being proud of where you come from. It's about bass and drums, harmony, vocals, everybody chiming in to create something special. It's about dancing. If you're listening to music, you have to feel the beat, regardless of what genre you're listening to. Even if you're listening to, like, you know, classical or whatever, you know, you still can internalize a certain rhythm. You know, and I feel like in music, you have these four components that come together. You got harmony, you know, you got rhythm, you got melody, and you got, last but not least, actually first, spirituality. So, you know, with those four, those are the key ingredients to making music. And being a bass player, you know, and a lot of bass players are really doing their thing right now around the world from Washington, D.C. And we all grew up on go-go music because we understand that bass and drums, you know, is the foundation of, you know. So let's say just to break it down to those people who are on here that aren't musicians, when you have like music and you're listening to music, we are the floor of the house. You can build a house, but you got to have the floor. You could drive a car, but you got to have the foundation of the car, unless you're the Flintstones and you got your feet going like this, and then you're riding with the car, but you got to have that floor. We are that floor that everybody can lean on. So we support all of the things that are happening on the vocals. We support the horn players. We support the piano players, the guitar players, so go-go music to me, that along with, of course, with African-American classical music, which we call jazz. It's, even if you go to gospel, you go to funk, you go to everything, we just, it's all about bass and drums. And it's about the community and the listening. And the listening that goes along with it. So go-go music is very dear to me. And that's kind of like, I call that the code. People wonder, like, why are bass players from Washington, D.C. really doing it right now in the genre, cross-genre? Cross-genre. You could talk reggae music. I'll speak specifically on jazz right now. I have some dear friends of mine that went to Duke Ellington with me, such as Eric Wheeler, bass player, my best friend. Awesome bassist, playing with Dee Dee Bridgewater, playing with Cyrus Chestnut, playing with Sting, playing with all kinds of people. I mean, Salim. He's currently living in Italy, but he's in DC right now playing, but he played with Roy Hargrove. It's just, Ben Williams, played with Pat Metheny. Everybody's going across this thing, but we all have this commonality because we're coming from DC, and DC has such a rich history of music, at least for me, coming back from going to Duke Ellington School of Arts, of course, Duke Ellington is from DC, Marvin Gaye is from DC, as a bass player, Michelle Ndegeocello is from DC. So there's this rich history and this rich blood that I'm so proud of. And so represented wherever I go. Yeah.
Corcoran, this is excellent, bro. Excellent. But listen, I want you to talk a little bit more about your album that's out. And then just recently was at Tacoma Station, and talk about that configuration that you had with you, the artists, because I know you play with a tremendous amount of artists, but this is what we're doing is for legacy purposes, so that other people listen, be motivated, and you're doing fine. I just want you to make sure that we got the time. I want to make sure that you talk a little bit about your album, your CD, your that projects that you're working on, your teaching, but also make sure you go back to what I was talking about in terms of Tacoma Station and those artists that you were able to pull with you, because every time I've heard you, I've always been inspired not only by your great musicianship, but the people you play with. Because you don't be playing with just anybody, if you hear what I'm saying. You with Kenny Garrett right now. But you got your own nucleus of peers that you talked about, which is so important. Definitely. I mean, especially where it relates to you. Go ahead.
So a lot of my people always tell me when I call them for gigs, recently what's happened since I moved back to DC, I call people. And my homie, Brian Settles, he's a tenor saxophone player from DC. I called him for this gig at Tacoma Station. Brian told me, and Don Vontae McCoy, a trumpet player from Southeast, also spent time in New York. Kwaku Sumbri, great drummer, coming from the same place that I'm coming from, master djembe player, but now is playing all over the place, recording for Blue Note. Went to school in New York, straight from DC. I also Janelle Gill, Noble Jolly. What I try to do is I try to choose musicians that are coming from a similar place, spiritually, rhythmically, creatively. So the name of my album that Baba Senghor mentioned is titled The Mecca. Okay, I put that out a few years ago, and it was about my journey from Washington, D.C. to New York City. And I called New York City the Mecca because when it's on my album, I have a lot of musicians from everywhere, all but New York, but we all met in New York. So I'm calling New York the Mecca because this is a meeting place of the minds, the meeting place of the creative people. And we all come together from all these different places. And it's about my journey. I have tunes in dedication that I wrote, 14th Street Bounce, that I wrote in dedication to 14th Street Northwest, Rainy Days, which is a cross genre of jazz and go-go. And then I have a tune titled Northwest that I wrote for representing Uptown DC. You know, I'm ever so proud to be from DC. So I've been able to do quite a few gigs since I moved back. I was down at Blues Alley with my band, and I always try. You know, Alan Johnson is another pianist that's around that I used, and you know, it's just it's been a lot of fun to be able to reconnect with folks, you know. And I've also been in touch with DC Jazz Festival, and they've had me doing some educational work. I've been doing master classes down at the Sitar Arts Center, right, in Mount Pleasant. I just did that a couple of weeks ago, which is really good. And my whole thing is while I'm in Washington, while I've been back, I want to reach out to the younger generation, and I want to inspire them and let them know, give them the same opportunities that I had, if not better. Because I had some amazing opportunities coming up. You know, I was able to know that I could do anything with my craft. So it's important for the younger generation to know just that. DC produces some of the most amazing artists in the world. And that's no lie. You know, that's no lie. Right now, there are, like I was just mentioning a few minutes ago, there's people tearing up things cross genre. You know, just from straight from Washington, D.C., you know, and so we should all be very proud of that and be very aware of that. You know, I am younger, but I'm moving into this new stage of I'm no longer like this 20-year-old kid anymore, you know. So now I'm thinking about the next generation, and so me coming back to Washington. For the time that I'm doing it, you know, it's to inspire, to try to really lift up this younger generation and let them know that anything is possible, man. Like all you have to do is just reach out. You can find me. You can find me on social media. I'm right, very present on social media. Corcoran Holt, C-O-R, another C-O-R-A-N, Holt, H-O-L-T. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can go to corcoranholt.com. You can find my email on my address. I'm always open and willing to talk to younger folks, even older folks, even folks my age. You know, it's all about just you know, just being able to allow folks to channel their inner artistry.
So Corcoran,
and just know what's possible.
So Corcoran, you know, I know we got a lot of people on that you know online, and not only Queen, Mama Kim and Ziah.
Hey, Mama Kim. Yeah.
So I want to give you an opportunity to shout everybody out, and also let everybody. You gave a little information, but any information you want to give people how they can contact you. And I'm so glad, and not only glad, proud of you, that not only you do what you do, but you're looking out for those that come behind you. And that is what this whole piece has been about. You know, Jamal Gray has been with us, Ross Ledge, you've done stuff with him in terms of interviews. So all of this is designed for us to share with others so that they can be motivated to know that they can achieve whatever they want. And, you know, by music not being taught in schools like it was when you were growing up or when I was growing up, you know, we do need to have our youth hear discussions like this so that they know that they can pick up an instrument, they can get involved with music, even if we don't got music in the schools. Like, you know, taking that out of schools was a terrible thing that happened.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake taking out of schools.
For example, Duke Ellington of the arts, it's so many artists. Like I talked to Jabari the other day, you know, Jabari Exum. We got Maya Muna. We could just go down the list like you were saying.
Did an amazing duo. I'm working on a duo project with Jabari. We performed at down at the Eaton Hotel a few weeks back. We did a duo set. We've been talking about doing this for 20 years. And we did it, and it was straight fire. It was just like, it was incredible.
Well, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to shout everybody out, and then we're gonna segue into a marvelous, spectacular, blacktricity, lovable couple after our next, two guests who you know very well. So I'll just give you an opportunity to shout everybody out,
Awesome.
and really thank you for taking the time out. I know it's almost like, I don't know what time it is over there now.
2 in the morning, almost 2 in the morning.
But you got to get.
I've been up. I
gotta
leave in like 5 hours. Yeah, we're going somewhere else in Spain.
Please.
This is the start of a 3-week tour.
But I'll let you shout out everybody. Anything you want to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, just say hey to everybody. I'm just honored to be here, just to share. And I just want to thank everybody. Thank everybody for being here and just for uplifting. We just got to uplift each other and inspire each other. And I thank everybody for inspiring me. Mama Mona, I see you on there. I've been around her since I've been 12 years old. So I'm just so thankful just for the community that I came up in and that I'm continued to be a part of. And you can find me on social media. My name is Corcoran Holt. Find me there, inbox me, right on the, little click on the message or whatever, and just drop your name and be in touch. The name of my album is called The Mecca. And it's under my own name, Corcoran Holt. And you can find that digitally anywhere. You can find hard copies of CD Baby, Amazon. But The Mecca, just check it out. It's my whole story. It's my whole story of my life. And the record that I'm on tour with right now is called Sounds from the Ancestors. It's Kenny Garrett project. We just won the NAACP Image Award for that. And check that out as well, And I'm just thank you for having me, Baba Senghor. Really. Oh, come on,
Corcoran. Thank you so much for taking time out. But you stick with us with the time that you can. I understand, but because if you got to leave us, you're going to get the YouTube of this.
Okay.
We're going to get the YouTube of this so you can catch it from beginning to end. But I want to move. We are perfectly on time. As the saying goes, our tech was caught up in traffic, but we made it. And we got
it happens.
Permit me, please, Baba Senghor.
Well, but really briefly, Baba, because of the time factors.
Yes. I just want to thank Corcoran.
Oh, sure.
And I want to say to him that you had me reminiscing there for a while about New York, because you were at my alma mater. That's Queens College.
Oh,
and I remember College. I had some good days over there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes, and then you mentioned Reggie Workman, and I mean, Hey, please.
Yes,
I remember Reggie Workman. There was a club, I think it was called Green Street.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was there on Friday nights, and listen. Thank you very much. Those are good memories for me, and
indeed, it's a pleasure.
I'm glad you're on, and I'm very I feel very good about all that you've said, and hopefully, there were other questions I had dealing with young people and inspirations and all that, but another time will come. So
anytime.
Okay, my brother.
Baba Mosi, for you can get that at least one question in. But I also just want to say that we're going to be doing a lot of stuff with Corcoran now that we got him down here from the Big Apple back into the Dewitt City. We're going to be doing some things here. So Bob, you get the vibe. But Baba Mosi, please ask at least one of your questions.
No, well, the question I had mainly is, how he feels about when he was at school as a young person. He was inspired to do different things. He was inspired to do music, and if he at this time feels that in the air, the way things are going, are young people getting the same kind of vibe so that they can, go in that same direction you went into? Are we having enough of that?
I think that it's just like when I was coming up, it's always going to be there, but it's all about the young people right now knowing that they can get that vibe, they can get that information. So it's very different than it was when I was coming up. Right now we're so tapped into social media. The young people are so tapped into social media. For me, my father used to take me to Twins Jazz, to hear Blues Alley, to hear Ahmad Jamal, to hear Mulgrew Miller. I would sit next to the piano and look at it, so it was a very personal thing. These days, a lot of young people are tapped in to seeing everything on the screen, So, but from doing things like this and them hearing, that, and that's part of my reason. One of my major reasons for coming back at this time is to allow the young people to have someone to talk to that has experienced things outside of where we come from, so I could be a source that they could talk to, so that they can know. So I want to create what I had during that time, if that makes sense. I want to give them what I had coming up, because it's very different now, so it still exists, but sometimes you just don't realize it. You lose the personal connection. So it is still here, and that's why I'm here. It was Duke Ellington. It's still Duke Ellington School of Arts is still very, very, very strong. The same sort of thing that was happening. Thank goodness the same sort of thing is happening there that was happening with me. Just young people being around each other every day, bouncing ideas off of each other, and then graduating, and then living out their dreams, and then contacting each other later on in life, 10 years later, collabing, coming together, being in movies, being in, doing all of these things are still happening, but the thing that I saw that I was concerned about is due to how things are now, how we're so disconnected, whether it be social media, whether it be the pandemic, is for someone like myself to be able to come back and try to connect with those young people and let them know that it's all good, that we, there's something, we got you. Michelle and Cello didn't come back to DC. You know what I'm saying? I mean, she still comes back to play, but she didn't come back to live in DC for a certain period of time, because she's been doing her thing. But I had the opportunity to do that. So this is part of my reason in doing that, just so I can, give the next generation that inspiration and that motivation to let them know, hey man, y'all could do, anything is possible. You could be sitting in your house right now, you'll be in Spain tomorrow, just like that. Trust me, I know.
All right, I hear you. That's where you're at now. You're over that way now. So,
yeah.
Corcoran, thank you so much.
Papa Senghor, if I may, please.
No, Rasafik, we got to move on.
Hey,
I just want to invite Corcoran to our 17th annual John Coltrane tribute in September.
Rasafik, you can do that. You can. Yeah, but not right now. Not on this, Rasafik. We got to.
I understand. I just want to make him aware of it.
Okay,
I got you.
Corcoran, you heard what Rasafik.
Yep.
You put that plug in, so he wants
September
you there.
23rd, man.
Okay, Rasafik.
Okay,
I'll give you a call.
All right.
Okay, call me.
Okay, man.
All right.
I was just listening to Kenny Garrett too. Well, Beyond the Wall. Yeah.
Okay, Baba. Okay, Baba.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Rasafik. Rasafik, no disrespect, but we on time constraints.
I understand, man. I understand.
All right.
Hey, much love. Thank y'all, man.
All right. So without any further ado, we're going to move on. Thanks, Corcoran. Without any further ado, we're going to move on to, for those people who have heard of Proverbs, or who have been moved by Proverbs reggae band, or more importantly, who have been uplifted by, Culture Shack on WPFW 89.3 on Saturdays. But without any further ado, I want to invite our king, who is taking time out from hard work that he does. He's not only a movement person, a messenger in the music, but King Ziah.
Ziah.
Yes, I got you, Kim. I got you. Ziah, King Ziah.
Yes, sir. Yes, my brother. Greetings, family.
Yeah. So
Greetings, Baba.
So
yes.
Yeah, what I want you to do.
Well, let me say this first. I just want to say enough respect to you, Baba Singo, Baba Mosey, and the entire UNIA Division 330, family, for having I on this platform.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. It's a work in progress. And that's why I said to my brother Rasafiq, I really appreciate the Love Supreme energy. But we all are working to get our young brothers and sisters clear on brothers and sisters who have come before them who are doing things. So with the little bit of time that we got, we want to get it all in before 9, but we need to be doing this a lot more, period. Not just the UNIA. All Black groups that are progressive need to understand music, message, and movement are the root of it all, which keeps us together. So without any further ado, I want you to do just like everybody else, how you want to do it. Talk a little bit about the music, what it means to you, and how important it is to us as Africans in moving forward. And not only that, anything you want to share with our artists that are out here that they need to know about, not step in the wrong way, but step in the righteous way?
Well, first I would say music has always been like a critical part of our survival and our mental liberation, finding the path of Rastafari, living in the Caribbean came with a lot of trials and tribulation, anything that wasn't Eurocentric Christianity always get rejected and scorned by the conditioned mind, but music was still the therapeutic tool, and still is, that strengthened our pride, to embrace our Africanness. There were times when a Rasta man or a woman would walk, growing up in my island as a young Rasta. Some man will hold you along and beat you and cut your locks, But the music, Rasta music, came out as a message, as a tool, to bring that strength, that energy, that kind of freed us up from that kind of oppression. The music, after we start playing music and became musicians, and we every day, we weren't trying to be famous or anything, but what we would sit down and try to strategize, how can we come up with a new message, that can reach these people, that would take them off our backs, and start to embrace the freedom that we see, within the music. So the music, it wasn't just about getting up on stage and shake and jump. It was a cultural thing for us, growing up as Rastafari. The music, just like on the plantation, on the cotton plantation, when the brothers and sisters would be singing all those freedom songs, it's the same concept. That's what it means to me, growing up in the Caribbean as a young Rasta, going through all those trials and tribulation. Music was the outlet, it was the remedy. And I don't know if you realize that back in the 60s, even 70s, it was illegal for you to read anything about Marcus Garvey or Black Power in a lot of these islands. So anything that had to do with that kind of Blackness was always outlawed. And Rastafari was one of them. So that's where the music came in for us, to use the music as a tool to gain some self-respect. And after our people start realizing that Rastafari are very talented people and hear the messages, they start listening to some of the words of what we would say in our songs. They start ease off a little bit and realize that we were dealing with something of substance. So coming here to this USA, music is the thing that brought me here. Because my brethren that I grew up with, my brethren afar I here would reside in New York. We wanted to really take the music to the four corners of the world. So with this, he moved here with his parents. So I decided, you know what? I'm gonna come here and we're gonna start doing some things here. So we came and we recorded a CD up in New York City, you know, called I and I Time. You know, and it was actually, I have to really get a copy of that CD that we can play in the Culture Shop, because it really paid a lot of respect to Marcus Garvey on there as well. You know, some of the things that Marcus, you know, said, and we can see them, you know, unfolding, you know, in front of our eyes right now. So music to me is not just a stage thing. It's not just about a thing to say, well, you know, it's like Ziah is a good singer, Proverbs is a good reggae band. It's about getting that message out there. It's about telling the truth the way you see it. It's about telling people to get up and stand up and fight for your right, you know? And so that's why we keep on fighting, you know, with it over the years. Although we don't make, right now, we don't make no millions from it, but it's still a tool that is of utmost importance, you know? So that's my truth from this time. And let me know if you want to ask me anything.
Unmute, unmute.
Unmute.
Thank y'all. I really appreciate that unmute part. I was so into what I was hearing. You know, I wasn't even interested in what was going on before me. But anyway, Baba Mosi, I'm going to allow you to ask the first of questions. I have one, and I want you to go first, though, Baba Mosi, because without you, Baba Mosi, president of Division 330, and you and Brother Congo, we wouldn't even be doing these Freedom Fridays. And this month, you have dedicated and allowed us to focus on music, message, and movement because of the nature of what's going on with our youth. And our youth need to hear all of this reasoning that's going on. And what I just heard, I'm gonna hold my question. I'm gonna let you go ahead on, Baba Mosi.
Yes, Grand Ziah,
King.
My brother, peace.
Yes, yes.
My brother, you know, there's a lot of what you said that brings back memories, you know, as to my growing up in a lot of ways. So, but what I want to say to folks is that my knowing you for several years and my respect for you is about your consciousness and then again your righteousness, because there are several people who have said to me, you know, that the trust they have in you as a person, they can, you know, how they can depend on you. It's something to be highly respected, and I give thanks that I know you as a person, my brother, who I respect, and you have shown me your consciousness and your righteousness. I've witnessed that, so I'm happy that you're on here with us tonight, and I want to ask you just one question, and that is, what do you see coming with the young people today? And you know, we're basing a lot of what we're discussing on how things affect young people. With your music and what you're witnessing, how do you feel, or should I say, are you optimistic about where things are going for young people today? And if not, why not? And what do you think we can do more?
Okay. I'm optimistic about the energy that the young people, have, and how they approach things, because they're not passive like a lot of us, used to be back in the day. The young people, they don't have no fear for anything. They don't have no fear for anything. Now, what I would say is, like, as elders, we need to still kind of guide them on the right path when it comes to the music, because they have it. They're talented and they're knowledgeable, they're smart and all of that. But I think we need to incorporate that more so into the music. Now, I will tell you why I say that. Reggae music, to me, as we all know, by listening to Bob, listening to Peter, listening to Bonnie, listening to Burning Spear, and I can go on and on and on and on. We've learned so much from these artists. And it was strong, and they were talking truth to power. But what we have to really realize, that a lot of the people who control the record companies, that are the producers and promoters, when we talk our truth, they are the ones, they are the oppressors. They are the ones that we're really talking about. So it's not in their best interest to really push us and see us at the top. And so what they did with reggae music and a lot of other music too, they try to tell you that, okay, it's a little bit too slow, it's too political, it's too social. And then a lot of the young artists, especially in Jamaica right now, they went to the dance hall, they took the dance hall route. Then come in the cultural appropriation aspect of it. You have Soulja came in, you have whole bunch of them, Euro reggae artists that came in, and they are playing the real roots reggae and getting Grammys for it, while we are doing something else. It's the same thing with R&B. Sometimes I like to look at some of the talent shows, on TV, because I like to see the young Black talent, And what I realized with some of these youngsters, when they go on these competition, they're trying to sing like the Justin Bieber and these people's songs. And the white folks now are trying to sing like Sam Cooke, and Marvin Gaye and these people. And that kind of soul, that kind of music, to me, impact the audience on such a level. And our people are shying away from it. So they're trying to tell you, well, okay, well, this is not just the same thing they did, not to take it too much off track, but it's the same thing they did to us back in the Caribbean with coconut oil. They came and they told us that coconut oil wasn't good for us, right? It's gonna mess up your heart and all kinds of stuff. So people, they stop using coconut oil, they start using all kinds of, other vegetable oils and stuff like that. That is not good for you. Next thing, one day they came up and said, now that coconut oil is the miracle oil, after we dropped it. So to me, it's the same thing that is going on with the music. So that's one thing that I would really like the youngsters to know, that what we have is very valuable and we can use it. We can use it as a tool to free ourselves. Because Harriet Tubman and whole bunch of brothers, and sisters that led the way to freedom. They didn't really have like a band behind them. They didn't have a format like to say, well, go and record something in a recording studio. But we have that. So we can use that. We can use our words because our words are very powerful. We can use our words to free ourselves. We can use our art to free ourselves. So that's something that I would love for them to really know. You know, that every tool that we need, we have to free ourselves. And it goes back to Marcus Garvey. And it's independent of the system. We could operate independent of these folks and have everything that we need. It's the same thing that Marcus was saying. Let's do it. Let's put the message back in the music.
Yeah, it's about African fundamentalism,
yeah,
as is put forward by Marcus Garvey. Now there's another thing. I sorry I said only one question, but let me get back to you with this. You know, that reggae music that was so fundamental to the freedom fighters in Africa, and elsewhere. Today we have some Black freedom fighters in a place called West Papua. And in West Papua, West Papua is occupied by Indonesia.
Right.
And there are people there who are fighting for their freedom. These people are using reggae music, going back to the same reggae music that was done during the days of the freedom fighters in Africa.
Right.
They're using Bob Marley and whatever else they can. But the rhythm, the feeling, the power of that music is within them, and they're moving on. It's keeping them in the fight.
Right.
So that is why when you said certain things, it reminded me, especially when you said the music we have is important to us. Yes, it's freedom music. It's revolutionary music. And I'm happy that you are part of that group of people who still respect that and who are still using that in the way you perform. So I thank you, my brother. And I'll move over to Baba Senghor.
Okay. Well, before let me just say something real quick. The music is so powerful that I met this brother from Algeria, and he weren't able to even speak a word of English, right? So we were working together in New York City. So I said, let me ask you, do you know reggae? He said, reggae? Bob Marley? Of course. And this dude, he couldn't even speak no English, my brother, but he understand Bob Marley. And he understand the message that was coming from Bob Marley's music. So that's how powerful the music is. And that's the kind of frequency we have to really keep it on.
Blacktricity.
Yes.
And the reason I say blacktricity, some people say, well, we got black power. I said, no, I'm not just talking about what we got. I'm talking about universal phenomena, universal energy, universal music. And when we talk, yes.
Yeah.
And that's what you just said. Is you don't have to even speak the same language. You don't have to even, you can be completely different. And if it hits you, it hits you okay. It's the same thing hitting the other person. And that's blacktricity. And when I say blacktricity, like I said, I want brothers and sisters to understand, blacktricity is a universal phenomenon. Out of the darkness comes the light. But then when you got music, you got vibration. And you have no words without vibes. And so that's so important what you just said, though. You know, you said word sound power, and that's very, very important. And that's what we got to, this is the main message we got to get generations, and not just the next generation, but all the generations that follow us to understand, because it goes all the way back.
Right.
I mean, it's not new. I don't care what genre are you playing. And that's what Corcoran was saying. That's what Dera was saying. Yeah. That's what you're saying. And that's what Jamal Gray said, that all of us cannot be wrong. So it's a connecting frequency with it. And when the music hits you, you feel okay. Even if you were feeling down, the music can heal you. And that's what Ivy Hilton was telling us about vibration and healing. So all of this, what we all are doing is just us testifying of our righteous understanding of message, music, and movement. And so my question to you before we move on to my dear sister, because I'm gonna talk a little bit about the importance of poetry. See, because words are critical.
Yep.
The words can uplift you, words can cut you down, they can hurt you, they can burn a fire, you know. But behind all of those words come what I call the heart of the drum, meaning you are an instrument. And if you tune yourself up right, you eat right, you play good music. Yep. If you put in the right kind of foods, the right kind of vibes will come out of you. It all connects scientifically. That's what electricity is about. And I had to put that clarity out there for everybody, because my good brother Rasafiq knows when we talk about a love supreme, we talk about the same thing. John Coltrane was talking about the same thing Bob Marley was talking about. I mean, we can switch genres and go back and forward. And that's what we want our young brothers and sisters. So whether it's hip hop, go-go, reggae, what we call it, Rego, reggae, whatever you call it, zouk music. I mean, it's all good music. And if you know the history, 9 times out of 10, it began with a melanin brother or sister. So we're not mad at everybody for liking it, but it's out. Go ahead.
You're talking about the culture shock when you mentioned.
Yeah, that's what I was. Look. I'm segueing into the other co-hosts, so I'm setting the tone because that's another thing about art. You can be an artist, but when you respect good art of others and share it, and I know Rasafiq, you really can relate to this. It's very important when you love something, for it to become supreme, you share it with others. And Culture Shack does not just play reggae music. Culture Shack plays a large genre of music, or many genres of music, but all of it is designed to uplift you and put something on your mind and get your movement going, your body, get you moved and organized. And Dera talked about how important movement was. So as we segue from you, my brother, my last question for you is, Culture Shack, what made you and my dear sister, Kim,
we need to do that together, because
no, we can't.
It's a story behind that, for sure.
Good. So that's the segue then. So without any further ado, when Kim say together, we talk about my another sister, Kim Bay, who is a master lyricist poet, who sometimes, like I put mine on my pen, sometimes she put down her pen, but when she pick it up again, it is awesome. Always. So with that said, my question is, Culture Shack, what made y'all decide to do Culture Shack?
Let me tell you this. Initially, when we were approached, it was initially supposed to be a reggae program. And I was all set on reggae. And Ziah says, no, I want to do all genres. I want to cover all of our people in everything that we do. And I was confused. I said, is that going to work? Are we going to confuse the listeners? But he was set on it. I was totally opposed in the beginning. And eventually it just started catching on because he was so determined. This was his idea. This was his concept, and it was a non-negotiable. And so, Ziah, you can take over from there. I just wanted you to know in the beginning.
No, that is excellent. I love the way you did that. And I'm going to let him speak, and then we're going to come right back to you.
Okay.
But that's why they call him DjzeeLion.
Lion.
Well, you see, because a lion understands that you got to get everybody listening. And sometimes people, like, as powerful as reggae music is, and don't get me wrong, I'm a reggae lover. I mean, I'm third world Bob Marley down, Steel Pulse all the way down, roots. But music comes in all forms and fashions, and so do messages.
Exactly.
And so a true DJ will understand that, regardless to whether he's a Rastaman or not. He knows he's trying to reach all Black people or all people. Let me take that back.
Well, this is the situation. I'm glad you say that, because the Culture Shack was created to exhibit Black music.
Another non-negotiable.
No disrespect to any other artist or whatever. No disrespect, but I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. The Culture Shack represents Black music, period. And wherever there is Black people, you're gonna hear music from those areas. You're gonna hear music genres from all those places. And when we first, like Kim said, when we first had got the opportunity to do the show, they wanted us to do reggae. I was thinking to myself, but wait a minute. But I love music from Sudan. I love music from Senegal. You know, I love R&B. I love go-go. I love all kinds of music. You know, I like zouk. I grew up with soca. You know what I mean? So it's like, it couldn't be just reggae. Although, you know, I mean, reggae music, you know, that's my heart and soul. You know, but we had to mix it up. We had to make sure that it was a full representation of everybody from Africa. That's why the theme is musically bridging the cultural gap between Africa and the diaspora.
African fundamentalism, my brother.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And let me say this too before we go to Sister Kim. That is a perfect example of message, music, and movement. It's like, look, we didn't say reggae music, we didn't say jazz, we didn't say hip hop, we didn't say zouk, we didn't say soca, and I mean, there's a whole lot of other music genres out there too, plenty. But all of them are relevant to music, message, and movement. And when you're doing the righteous thing, trying to uplift, trying to bring love in the world, trying to bring more positivity amongst the people, you ain't got time for no slackness. You want to deal with some good music. So by you saying what you just said, you know, you being a reggae artist with a group, you could have easily said, wow, I'll go on PFW and I'll play reggae and I'll get Proverbs music in there and I'll just push reggae. But you were wise enough to understand the movement aspect of our people. And that is Black people everywhere. If it ain't no music, you got problems. Y'all hear what I'm saying? I mean, if you don't have some music, you're going to have some problems. If everybody looking at the boob tube and not listening to music, you're going to have some problems. Especially looking at the boob tube, because you're going to end up becoming, you know what I mean? You got to have some music. And that's why poetry is so important. Now, Kim, our first debut of April, Freedom Friday, was done with a master poet, an elder, our good father of the Watts Prophets.
Ooh.
83 years of age. When you hear what he has to say, because he's a master. Not only that, he's a father, he's a bishop. And he's powerful. When you get to listen to that, you'll understand why I went back to that, because some of the things he said were legendary. He said he's done. He's done all he could do. You know what he said, but he's clear. He's clear. And his poetry was the kind of cutting edge poetry that came out of the movement, because that's why they call themselves the Watts Prophets. So that's a good segue into you, because I'm a poet and I know it, but I live it and learn it, because we all are poets, if you know what I mean. Some of us just don't write it and express it, because poetry is so critical. So without any further ado, and I want to stop there beforehand, hold on. You're not just a poet artist. You are an artist. I mean, you make things, you sow. So we're not just dealing with art from the message music perspective. We're dealing with the movement and the culture. And that's important. And you tie all of that in. And not only that, y'all been some of the, I got some, never mind, I'm gonna stop right there. Sister Kim, bless us up with however you want to bless us up with all words down power, because we're gonna keep you up until the 9 hour. We all leaving at 9, but go ahead on and bless us up with some words.
Peace and blessings, everybody. Sinkor, thank you for always including us in everything, always supporting us. Baba Mosi, I see Mama Jeanette on there, my little sister Raven, Mama Mona Cherie, Baba Rasafiq, everybody. Thank you for all of your support. Zama, I see you there too. I'm gonna rewind a little bit. I'm going all the way back to like 9 years old. And I'm not from a necessarily cultural family, but I knew at 9 years old, something hit me. Something hit my spirit. And I have photos of me from 9 years old, sitting in the chair with the fist up. Where it came from, I don't know. I think I was initially driven by the Nation of Islam because they were in my community and they drew my attention and they drew me in. And I was like, there's something going on and there's something in me that's not in my family and my siblings. So we're taking it back to 9 years old. And throughout my life, I've always been Black culturally driven. And that has been nonstop. I've been a model. I've been a fashion designer, as you said, a playwright. I've staged 5, written, directed, produced 5 plays, all Black history oriented from the beginning. I was the director of the DC Black Theater Festival from its inception. I remember Glenn Allen calling me and he said, I have an idea and I want you involved. And we had a round table. He said, I want to launch a DC Black Theater Festival. It's never been done before. And I said, if we do this, I was on board. If we do this, we have to find a way to incorporate the smaller artists here in DC, the playwrights here in DC, because they've never had an opportunity or access to these larger stages. So we came up with the concept that we're going to produce 5 shows in one day. And that will cover the cost of the production. Like that would have been one production for one show, but we split it up in an hour. Everybody gets an opportunity to get on this large stage for 1 hour. So we called forth all of the local playwrights. Kamon was there, quite a few. And then we presented it to the playwrights. And Kamon said, he just threw his paper down. He sat back. He said, you know what? This is gangster. And I'm down. So we booked all of the major theaters in DC. We had international artists come in. We had national artists come in and playwrights, but we had blocks for our local artists. And that thing was bananas. We were all over we booked the entire city. So that's the playwright part. Poetry is part of my wanting to express myself. Coming up in North Philly, needing to express the plight of our people because we saw so much. I was this little red girl with this fiery spirit in the middle of North Philly saying, no, that's not right. We need to fight. We need to do something. And a lot of times people don't hear you. So when I put it in words and then I express it from the heart, it would make them take notice. And again, as you know, Single, all of my poetry is culture, conscious, fire, love, but it's all for our people and it's all for elevating, hopefully that's what I've been able to do. I remember at one point I was an artist. I was doing all of these little things. I was over here doing poetry, over here on the stage acting, over there doing a fashion show, but I had no money. I was broke. So I had to go into the government. Well, I had to secure a job. And so I decided on government, but I said 2 things had to happen before I go into government. The position had to mean something, and I had to be able to bring my art. So I sought out a position in EEO. I became an EEO counselor, an EEO specialist, a final agency decision writer in EEO, Equal Employment Opportunity. I did that for employment. I did it for housing, and then I did civil rights at the Department of Commerce. But what I did, I became a Black employment program manager and a Black emphasis program manager. And that way I was able to bring the Black history plays in. I brought musicians in, I brought bands and groups in different programs. They had never seen anything like that before in government. They didn't know what the heck was going on. What is this girl doing? But again, it was revolutionary. And then even after I left, it continued. So I don't have a whole lot to say because, you know, I'm not long-winded like many, but if you have any questions, I'm open.
Well, you know, you said a lot there, Kim, and I really appreciate that because that hit right on the head of the purpose of this whole month-long focus on message, music, and movement. But ever since I've known you, I'm coming right back to you. Go ahead. No, go ahead. You got a burning thought. Go.
I did have one thing to say with regard to music and reggae in particular. I've been seeing a lot. We were talking about how the white artists are infiltrating themselves into the reggae scene. And just last week, I saw this one post, and it really hit hard. And Ziah, you can weigh in if you like. It really hit hard and it hurt. It's a music festival coming to Baltimore, a large music festival, over 20 acts, not one Black.
Right.
Not one single Black act. And then there's an African festival in Germany. I have some friends stationed in Germany, and it states African Music Festival. Who's the one person on front and center on the flyer? Family Man. A white reggae artist. So a sister friend of mine, she asked the promoter, she's like, this is an African festival. You have African descent people here in Germany, and we were looking forward to this. I think you missed the mark by placing Family Man on the forefront of this flyer. No other artists on the flyer, but Family Man. They asked her if she was a racist. And I say that to say we need to pull our resources together and start promoting our own shows again on a large scale, because these acts, they are getting on these stages, and I can tell you now, they are not getting paid no little $500, $600, $700, $800, $900, $1,000. They're getting paid big bucks for watered down reggae and for taking over what's ours. So something has to be done with regard to that. Those who can, should.
Well, you know, I call it the culture vulture attack.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, without doubt.
Because it's not just happening with reggae, it's happening with anything that moves us, even African drums. Anything that moves African people is being moved on against. That's why it's important of what we're doing here, because, you know, and I challenge anybody, call us racist, because we'll break down the race first philosophy to you like never before. I mean, because the bottom line is, you talk about humanity, there was no humanity before us. In fact, we are humanity, and all humanity comes from us. But we're not going to get all into that. I get off into that. But my point to you, though, Kim, is that that's all the more reason why we have to do just what you just said. We have to do for self, be for who, be for you. And the other fellow, the wrecking industry, is going to do what they do. Sam Cooke is a perfect example for young people to know about Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke controlled his own music, controlled his own direction. He didn't just meet Malcolm X. He didn't just meet those brothers and sisters. He was about what they were about in the music business. And that's why they killed Sam Cooke.
Absolutely. Just like that. That's why they kill all of us. All of us.
Exactly. And that's why they're doing the killing. See, what they're doing now is killing the minds of our brothers and sisters, Kim, by attacking the actual industry. And that's across the board. That's all genres. I mean, we could talk about it with jazz and all of that. We could talk about it with hip hop. We could talk about it even with go-go music, believe it or not. But I want to come back to you, and then we're gonna make sure that Baba Mosi gets to speak to you, and then we got the last 15 minutes. We're gonna have open discussion. But Kim, based on what we know and what we see, I know you gave a part of the answer just now. What do you think we need to be about doing as Africans, regardless to what genre of music we may be dealing with, to reach our young minds?
First and foremost, we have to master social media. That's where their brain is. That's where they live. That's the only way we're going to reach them. We have to master Twitter. We have to master
Clubhouse.
What's that other one? The TikTok or something like that?
TikTok, but Clubhouse too. All of them. But for real, Kim, you got a lot of you got to, in order to do away with negativity, you got to match it with positivity.
I know.
So what you just said is so important. The youth are being bombarded by negativity in social media, and what we need to do is to bombard the youth.
Flood them.
So we're going into those social media.
And also outside of social media, whenever we are doing anything, presenting anything, we need to make sure the youth are present and learning. We have to pass that torch.
Yes.
So many of us want to hold everything so close. Mine, only me. But if you leave, then what?
That's right.
If for some reason you're gone, then what? You never shared that information. You never shared that knowledge. And once we bring them in, we have to trust them and give them an opportunity to lead just like we had the opportunity.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Baba Mosi, it would be totally incorrect for me not to let you speak now to questions or comments to Sister Kim, and then we'll go into open discussion, and whoever's still with us can be in that discussion. But we want to keep discussion focused on music, message, and movement and solutions. And one of the biggest solutions is what we're talking about right now, is how do we reach the minds of our young brothers and sisters? And look, everybody ain't gonna make it. So y'all, I'm gonna say it differently. Everybody ain't gonna make it. Yeah, everybody ain't making it. But those who want to make it need to know how to make it. And it's important for them to have the same opportunity, but we cannot reach everybody, but certainly we can reach those people that are race first and are serious, and give them the platforms and produce some shows and opportunities for those hard-working message music brothers and sisters that are out here, so they can not only get paid, but so that they can continue making music. I mean, let's be, freedom ain't free. But anyway, Baba Mosi.
Yes, greetings, my sister.
Greetings, Baba Mosi.
It's so good to see you.
You too.
Let me say, I don't know what Baba Senghor doesn't know it, but when you're talking about your poetry, asking me to ask you a question is the wrong thing he did, because I may want to ask you to do that poem that you dedicated to the king that I have a video of. Do you think you can do that for me right now? Because it's dedicated to the king. And
we talking revolutionary black love, huh?
Listen, man.
Let me see if I can remember it from the top of my head.
Yeah.
There were two, but I think you're talking about From Then Until Forever. I think that's the one. Lord have mercy, you put me on the spot. The very first time I looked into your eyes, I saw from that moment until forever. From then until forever. I actually saw forever in your eyes. When you gave, see, I don't know about heart. I don't know about heart.
You know what?
I'm going to pull it up because I want you to have this
But
poem.
Kim, that line itself had me almost in tears. Because I could feel it. See, that's what I'm talking about word sound power, y'all. And
let me tell you what happened with that poem. Abena Disro, she had a birthday party, and I was invited to do poetry, and Ziah wasn't invited to perform, to play his guitar, and we hadn't known each other. And I looked over at him and I was like, okay, I'm gonna ask this brother to back me. And I switched poems. I made most of that up off the top of my head. So I said, can you back me when I play? And he said, okay. So you're right. So I started and I just looked at him. I was like, okay, just think. And I'm looking in his eyes. And I started saying, the very first time I looked into your eyes, I saw From That Moment Until Forever. He started strumming the guitar like, what the heck is going on? And who is this person? And I just kept going on, and by the end, he was like, okay.
Wow.
All right.
And that was funny.
Oh, that's the power of the king.
No, that was the power of the queen.
That's power of the queen. Oh, that's right. You're the one that did it. Anyway,
So Kim and Baba Mosi, there's something to this thing now. I mean, I just learned something. So y'all met, performing music together. I met dancing with Kathy. So it's got to be something to the movement. It got to be something to the movement and the music and the message. But anyway, that was on a sidebar, but that's a fact that maintains itself. Kim, I never knew that story. Baba Mosi, thank you for bringing it up. Kim, you take your time, see if you can pull that up. But in the meantime, we want to continue the discussion, Baba Mosi. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, when we look at where we're going with young people and how we can influence their minds, the one thing I can think about is starting from day one, starting from birth, starting from kindergarten, all the way up, influencing them with and Africanizing them. Let them understand who they are, because I think what has happened with a lot of our children is that they've lost the sense of who they are. And they're now disrespecting who they are, because why else would they be doing the things that not everyone is doing it, but a lot are doing it. It's a significant amount of young people are doing things that are negative towards the culture. Because it's like self-hate. And it may be subliminal messages coming from God knows where, you know, TV, social media, etc. And they're not, this behavior doesn't just come out of, you know, a natural state of mind. It's being learned. And so we have to work on the minds of the young people so as to, you know, put them on a path towards, well, I don't want to use the word righteousness, but let's face it. Righteousness is what it's all about, because in that way, they will respect each other, respect who they are, respect parents, respect culture. And then it's you know, loving your brother, being your brother's keeper or your sister's keeper. Because we have to get to that stage where whatever we put out there is powerful enough to influence our young people so that they will be on a positive path. And and it's images. You know, when you have an image, like for instance, we see on the news, when we see crime on the news over and over and over every single day, a lot of what is being projected to, the images that are being projected to the public are images of young Black people who have committed crime. And the disrespect they get from the police is another thing too. They look on them as animals committing crimes, because why else would some young kid, 9-year-old, be forced into a car, the back of a car? And if other people hadn't seen and objected to it, God knows where that kid would have been. We have Black people being shot, despite everything that's going on, shot in the back of the head from a police stop regarding some license plate. It's a young person, and it's an African person. It's a continental African person. It doesn't matter.
Right.
And so we have to do, you know, I'm saying this as true Garveyism, because it's where the message comes from, where I'm concerned, through African fundamentalism. Garvey's philosophy. Children don't get that at school, and parents have to teach that to their children. Because, I mean, it's not, some people may want to say, well, it's more like racism. It's not. Loving yourself, teaching about yourself, it doesn't mean you hate other people. Doesn't mean you think you're more superior.
Baba Mosi.
Yes, sir.
We got 7 more minutes, and I hear you, brother. I hear you.
Okay, well, I'll close there. I'll close there, and I'm saying, my sister.
Kim, was you able to find the point?
What's your voice?
I found it,
tell me
but
what
we don't
you think
have
of
time.
that.
It's cool. If you want me to do it real quick, I got it.
Okay, great.
I want you to do it.
Okay. The very first time I looked into your eyes, I saw from that moment until forever. From then until forever, I actually saw forever in your eyes. When you greeted me, time stood still and my heart stopped beating for 1 second that felt like an eternity. I lived in the sound of your voice, heavily spiked with a Caribbean accent that made my entire body quiver. Quiver from sampling a mere micron of what was yet to come. Infinite molecules of weed danced before my mind's eye, and since fire represents life, I wanted you to be my fire. I gazed upon your masculine splendor and witnessed one of God's greatest creations, and I slowly devoured every single inch of you. I had never experienced anything or anyone like you ever. And I fell madly in love with you, but you didn't know. So I'm here today because I really need to make you see exactly what unfolded in that magical moment. I heard Marvin Gaye belting out "Let's Get It On," the Isley Brothers, "Between the Sheets," Sade's "By Your Side." I heard Luther Vandross, Will Downing, the Stylistics, the Temptations. Man, I heard Lenny Williams singing in my ears. And just as I was about to explode, you started talking. Not just talking, you actually engaged in intelligent conversation. None of that, ooh, baby, ooh, boy. Your spirit spoke my language, and you had me tripping on the deepness of your mind. See, you talk revolution, and you talk struggle. You talk pain, and you talk suffering. You talked about raising the babies and saving the babies. You talk love, hate, war, peace. You talked, and I listened. I was hooked on your phonics, hanging on to every letter, every vowel, every consonant, every syllable, all of the words, creating the sentences, expressed in the perfect phrases, articulating your profound intellect. And although the natural forces drawing me to you were difficult for me to fathom, I still listened and held on for dear life because I was sinking in you. I realized how hungry I was, deprived, starving for your knowledge, wisdom, understanding, your essence, your depth. I was starving for you. I saw you unleash my most naughty nature. I saw me all over you, all over me like skin. I saw you covered in me, covered in you, dripping me, dripping you, we dripping sticky wet in us. My soul tasted what was like a small drop of pure maple syrup on the very tip of my tongue. A complex equation to which I had yet the workings of a formula, and there was no doubt in my mind, no doubt that you were the missing link to my life, my soul brother, my balance, my kindred spirit, the yang to my yin. So I abandoned the thought of thinking, since overanalyzing can mess your head up sometimes, and I allowed my animal instincts to lead me to swim in the waves of your ocean, because I have been preparing my entire life for that moment, for you. And I knew right then what I know now, what I came to tell you, what I need to tell you, what I have to tell you here today. I want to be in Jah with you, and Allah with you, and Jehovah with you, and Jesus with you, and light with you, and love with you, unmasked with you, free with you, as one with you, in my nakedness with you. I want to be from then until forever with you. Damn, baby. All I'm trying to say is, all I have to say is, I just want to be with you.
Wow. Hey, Baba, nobody can say nothing. Stop, drop the pens. Kim,
yes,
that was profound. And, and I know everybody that heard that or hears that, you know, will feel the universal love that was personal, but it was so powerful for everybody to hear, because that's what we got to get back to Black, blend again with. When we hook up, we got to be able to hook up on that kind of righteous vibration energy, because we know that they've done everything they can to keep us away from hooking up and being one with one another. And so that's so important that you shared that. And Baba Mosley, he's just back there grinning. I say Baba Mosley was so happy that you was able to pull that up and read it, but I am too. And we're gonna stay true to the 9 o'clock time, because this day, y'all, this day, 4/22/22 is 48, which breaks down to 13, which breaks down to 12, which breaks down to 3. And for me, for those who don't know numerology, is 3 represents truth. Everything we've heard tonight is based in truth. We've spoken truth to power. We want to thank everybody for joining us. I'm going to turn it over.
Brother Senghor, Patrick here. One historical point I want to interject to the good brother, Brother Ziah.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Yeah, coming from St. Vincent, you always have to interject historically. That King Jaja.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to interject that point, you know, to show the relevance of the great king who was sent to that island by the British in 1887.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, and the reflection there is very dynamic in terms of the Rastafarian movement.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
That's it, Brother Singor. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you, brother, for chiming in, because words sound power. And by the way, my brother who just spoke to you all, I want to take y'all back to when the UNIA was doing stuff in Banneker Field. And my brother knows exactly what I'm talking about. And he goes back. I like to tease him and say that he reminds me physically of my brother Jackson Bay. They almost look like brethren. And so I just want to hail him up, because he's been kicking it with us all the way back, Baba Mosi, to Banneker Field as an artist, as a spoken word artist, speaking truth to power. And he knows music, movement, and music, message, and movement are extremely relevant. And thank you for that historical point of King Jaja. We really appreciate that. And with that said, I'm going to be true to what I told Baba Mosi. I'm closing out. I'm turning it back over to him. So you got to hold him responsible if we go past the 9 o'clock hour. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're not going to go past that. It's 9:50. Oh, it's 9:01. Oh my gosh. Okay, folks. Thank you very much. Coming from the heart, the minds, to all you beautiful people. I love you. And I know all the members of the UNIA Division 330, Woodson, Banneker, Jackson Bay, Division 330. Love you too. Happy that you were here with us tonight. And peace and blessings. One God.
Respect.
One aim, one destiny. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Love y'all.
All right. Love Supreme, y'all. Peace and blessings.
Pastor Fee.